Following the events in the Goddess Monument arc, where we were able to reunite briefly with our beloved characters in the distant past, Frieren, alongside her new party, is now embarking on a journey across the territory of the Empire. This empire was reputed to have once united the entire continent and sustained its army for 1,000 years. Stay tuned as we explore this challenging landscape, uncovering more fascinating lore and revelations in the story. 31 years since the passing of hero Himmel, Frieren and her companions find themselves in Boni village, nestled within Imperial territory. Upon their arrival, they are greeted by the village chief who enthusiastically informs them of their timely arrival for the Liberation Festival, scheduled for the evening. He invites them to partake in the festive activities alongside the villagers. As they walk through the village, Frieren, Fern, and Stark observe the lively preparations for the festival. Stark inquires about the cause of the celebration, and upon noticing the hustle and bustle, Fern echoes his curiosity. Frieren explains that the Liberation Festival commemorates the anniversary of the Demon King's downfall, a significant event celebrated across the Imperial territory with grand festivities, hinting at the likelihood of a lavish feast. Fern and Stark respond with visible excitement, especially Stark, who relishes the thought of enjoying a sumptuous meal after so long. As evening envelopes the village, adorned with stalls and decorations, Fern queries Frieren on where they should start their festival experience. Frieren, drawn towards the square by the desire to touch the hero Himmel's statue, a gesture believed by the chief to bestow good fortune, decides to head there first. Despite Stark's skepticism about such superstitions, Frieren opts to partake in the tradition, arguing the harmless nature of the act and the potential regret of not seizing the opportunity. Stark's remark about Frieren's susceptibility to mimics does little to deter her determination, leading him and Fern to follow her to the square. Upon reaching the bustling square, they proceed towards the Himmel statue, only to find it markedly different from any other representation of Himmel they've encountered previously. Stark hardly recognizes the depicted figure due to the statue's muscular build, heroic visage, and the adorned nobleman's attire, which Stark deems impractical for combat. Frieren mentions that such artistic liberties are common within the Imperial territory. She recalls encountering a statue of Flam that bizarrely portrayed her as an elderly man. She elaborates on the tradition of deifying and worshipping heroes posthumously in the Imperial territory, observing that this particular statue of Himmel appears freshly erected. The mayor, catching wind of their conversation, approaches to provide context. The village's former Himmel statue had aged, prompting a collection of donations from the villagers for a new one. He expresses a belief that Himmel, from his heavenly abode, would gaze upon this new statue with joy. Stark, poised to question the statue's lack of fidelity, is promptly silenced by Frieren, who advises against diminishing the villagers' pride in their tribute. As they depart the square, Frieren reasons with Stark, suggesting the futility of critiquing the statue's accuracy, especially when it wouldn't alter anything. She notes the northward escalation of reverence for Himmel, pointing out that such admiration builds upon a misconstrued image of the hero, diverging significantly from his true self. Stark expresses discomfort with this disparity, but Frieren reassures him, highlighting the absence of ill will behind the villagers' actions. Their collective adoration for Himmel motivated the construction of what they deemed a magnificent statue, despite Frieren's concession that Himmel might not personally favor the grand, noble representation. During the festival, they indulged in various activities, visiting numerous stalls, enjoying a substantial meal, and meandering through the village streets. Subsequently, Frieren found herself alone at Himmel's statue, fulfilling her initial intention to touch it. In this moment of solitude, she reminisces about a past event. It was after their victory over the Demon King, as the hero party made their way back to the royal capital, passing through Boni village. As they journeyed, an elderly man narrated the exploits of the hero party to an enraptured audience of children, boasting about Himmel's feat of slaying a serpent, about 100 meters in length, an assertion that elicited gasps of wonder from the children. Within the carriage, Hyder skeptically noted the exaggeration, stating he had no memory of such an event. Eisen chimed in, clarifying that although Himmel did indeed vanquish a serpent in the vicinity, its length was merely 10 meters. Himmel, not to be outdone, grandiosely claimed the serpent was 200 meters long, only to be promptly accused of fabrication by both Eisen and Hyder. Frieren, however, suggests to her companions that they should regard these tales with a level of gravity. They have recently vanquished the Demon King, and narratives of their feats are beginning to circulate. Inevitably, these stories will be embellished, and over time, they will solidify into accepted fact. Himmel, adopting a contemplative demeanor, concedes to Frieren's perspective. Although he laments the inevitable distortion of their adventure's narrative, he emphasizes that the essence of their achievement remains unaltered. The hero party embarked on an absurd yet thrilling journey and emerged victorious in saving the world. To him, the essence of their journey's reality suffices. Reflecting on Himmel's insights in the present, Frieren affirms to his sculpture that he was indeed correct. She looks on as the villagers rejoice, celebrating the legacy left by Himmel and his companions, even if the precise details of their saga have faded from memory. As dawn breaks the following day, Frieren and her companions set out from Onii village to venture further north, reminiscing about the joy of the festival. Stark recounts an anecdote he heard from an elderly villager about Himmel cleaving a serpent, purportedly a kilometer in length, in two, and queries Frieren about its authenticity. Frieren contemplates the exaggeration, noting how the serpent's size has been inflated 100-fold from reality. Frieren's party now finds themselves within the Farb region, nestled in Imperial territory. They observe the dire state of the village, with Fern questioning whether a merchant's overturned wagon was a casualty of local disturbances. Stark points out the conspicuous absence of food, indicating it was consumed by some creature. Furthermore, Fern highlights the dilapidated condition of the surrounding farms. A village woman disclosed to them the persistent harassment by monsters on the road, prompting their plea for aid from adventurers. Despite reaching out to an Imperial patrol, assistance remains forthcoming. Frieren queries about potential rewards, to which the woman, acknowledging the village's modest means, regrets their inability to offer wealth. Upon Frieren's inquiry about grimoires or magical items, the woman presents a vase rumored to induce nightmares. According to local lore, sleeping near this vase results in terrifying dreams. Although Fern finds the vase's nature disconcerting, Frieren's interest is piqued, especially after learning the woman herself has not dared to use it, a caution Frieren deems reasonable. Agreeing to the terms despite Fern's objections, Frieren finalizes their agreement with a handshake. As the group ventures to address the request, Fern is astounded by Frieren's acceptance of such an unsettling reward. Stark jests about Frieren's questionable preference, prompting Fern's playful threat to place the vase near him while he sleeps, which Stark hastily rebuffs. Noticing further destruction, including a wrecked shed along their path, Stark challenges Frieren's assurance of safety within Imperial borders. Frieren contemplates their recent passage through seemingly abandoned areas, suggesting significant changes have occurred since her last visit to this region. Inquiring about her last visit, Frieren reveals it was over 80 years ago, prior to her mission to vanquish the Demon King. Stark, astounded by the span of nearly a century, a duration capable of witnessing the rise and fall of empires, questions the fate of the Empire. Frieren clarifies, noting Stark's unfamiliarity with the Empire's long history, which spans over a millennium. She describes the Empire's origins from a once unified continent-spanning empire, known for its vast magical civilization. Despite being besieged by demonic realms a century ago, the Empire stood resilient, often described as standing amidst lions, and ultimately reclaimed its territories from demonic control, a fact that impresses Stark. Abruptly, monsters appeared, forming a ring around them. Fern noted their predicament, being encircled. Leveraging their unique skills, they launched into action and swiftly eliminated the encroaching monsters. Stark remarked on their formidable strength and the perilousness of their surroundings. It was then that Frieren's attention was drawn to a particular observation. They approached and discovered the Imperial patrol, lifeless, sprawled on the ground. Upon their return to the village, they are greeted with gratitude and a promise from the villagers to honor the fallen soldiers. The woman fulfills her promise by handing over the nightmare-inducing vase to Frieren. While departing, their attention is drawn to a statue purportedly of Flam, which Frieren fails to recognize, prompting her to reflect on a past interaction with the Great Mage. Flam had observed the burgeoning potential among Imperial mages, a point of astonishment for a younger Frieren. Despite acknowledging the Empire's strength, Flam cautioned against complacency, highlighting the transient nature of power and the inevitability of change, a perspective she encouraged Frieren to appreciate given her longevity. Returning to the present moment, Frieren and her companions scrutinized the sculpture thought to depict Flam. That evening, with curiosity piqued, Frieren experiments with the vase, an action that Stark finds noteworthy and Fern admires. As they neared the Titan Fortress ruins, Frieren's party gazed upon the extensive castle remnants. Fern remarked on their simplicity, to which Frieren explained that this was the Titan Fortress, a once formidable stronghold built for practicality over aesthetics during the war against the Demon King. The Empire, having battled demons for years, found the fortress's design perfectly suited to their needs. Stark questioned whether a lord had resided there, learning from Frieren about Count Armee, whose warrior family had governed the area for generations but ultimately succumbed to the passage of time. Stark's curiosity about their non-typical nobility led Frieren to discuss how authority and elegance are valued differently across regions and times, particularly in areas threatened by demons where military prowess earned respect over refined grace. Approaching the ruins, Stark observed the castle's impressive scale, but Frieren sensed a nearby skirmish between a man and a monster. Stark suggested rushing to aid, but Frieren hesitated, indicating assistance might be unnecessary. They watched as the man skillfully wrestled the monster, leaving Stark impressed and Fern intrigued by the combat technique employed. The man, noting their presence, introduced himself as Armee, surprising Stark given Frieren's earlier reference to the ruling family of the region. Realizing the man's nobility, Stark promptly kneeled, pleading for mercy rather than execution, to which Armee gently urged him to stand. Armee divulged that his family fell from nobility during his grandfather's era, losing both their status and their estate. Despite his grandfather's prowess in battle, his political acumen was lacking. Armee, a mere child at the time, could only witness his family's decline without fully grasping the situation. Now, he confessed, he is merely a mercenary. Upon inquiring about his presence at the ruins, Armee revealed he had a proposition for them, coinciding with their arrival. He shared details of a concealed treasure within a secret chamber beneath the fortress, which he couldn't access alone due to the monster infestation. His tattered attire was a testament to his struggles with these creatures, a condition he found embarrassing. Frieren initially mistook his attire as intentional before querying the reward for their assistance. Armee offered half of the treasure, a sum he assured would suffice for a lifetime of ease. Frieren, however, expressed skepticism about the amount's adequacy over her extensive lifespan and inquired about the existence of grimoires. Armee produced a note detailing the spell to keep your body nice and warm, a formula he frequently employed. Agreeing to the terms, they set out to uncover the treasure. Armee led them through the fortress, battling various monsters along the way until they encountered a formidable beast guarding the basement's entrance. Its significant mana indicated a formidable opponent. Armee urged them to retreat for their safety, but Frieren insisted on standing by him, arguing that the treasure represented a legacy rightfully his. Disregarding the dangers for the sake of a seemingly minor spell did not deter Frieren, emphasizing its value to her. Together, they prepared to confront the monstrous guardian. In a recollection featuring Frieren and Flam, Frieren comments on Flam's advancing age, to which Flam humorously retorts, suggesting she wouldn't appreciate being called a little brat herself. This leads to a discussion about the futility of humans learning magic, given their brief lifespans and inability to master magic fully. Flam asks her about the specific area of study she is engaged in, leading to a mention of the theory of irreversibility. Upon learning that Flam has formulated over 100 theories, she highlights this achievement as a testament to her life dedicated to magic, suggesting that these contributions will foster the development of numerous spells long after her time, leaving a lasting legacy to the world. In the current day, the party reaches a chamber abundant with treasures, evoking a sense of accomplishment in Armee. Despite the loss of his family's land and title, reclaiming the treasure symbolizes the enduring legacy of the Armee family. Armee expresses his gratitude towards the party and offers a share of the treasure, but Frieren prioritizes the value of the spell over material wealth. As they proceed, Frieren tests the newly acquired warming spell on Stark, who acknowledges its effectiveness but just that it's hardly sufficient to go around half-naked. Transitioning to the next phase of their journey, the group found themselves in the Horan region, still nestled within Imperial territory. The bustling city streets marked a refreshing change, as Fern mentioned it had been quite some time since they last visited a city. Stark eagerly anticipated the opportunity to unwind, expressing relief at the thought of taking a break from their prolonged period of camping outdoors. Upon securing accommodations at an inn, Stark didn't hesitate to voice his weariness of camping, a sentiment Fern echoed, lamenting the discomfort of sleeping on the cold, hard ground. Frieren concurred, acknowledging the challenge of finding restful sleep without the comfort of warm beds, though Stark pointed out that Frieren seemed to manage better than the rest of them in the great outdoors, despite her peculiar sleeping posture. After settling into the inn, Frieren suggested that they spend the day as they pleased until the evening. While Frieren opted for a day of relaxation at the inn, Stark planned to have his axe serviced by a blacksmith. It was then that Frieren subtly reminded Fern of Stark's impending birthday, a fact Fern was well aware of, having already procured a present. Frieren also revealed she had prepared a gift, though Fern expressed hope it wouldn't be as eccentric as Frieren's previous offerings. A curious rattling sound from Frieren's gift led her to hastily conceal it, opting instead to promise a dinner of homemade hamburger steaks. Observing a melancholic air about Frieren, Fern inquired why she had yet to present her gift to Stark, suspecting it would undoubtedly bring him joy. Fern admitted struggling to find the perfect moment for the exchange. As Frieren made her way back to the inn, she reflected on the ample time remaining until dusk to bestow her gift, while resolving to focus on the culinary task at hand. Despite this resolve, Fern couldn't help but note the lingering sadness in Frieren's demeanor. Frieren informed Fern that the blacksmith's workshop was located in the town square, suggesting she could find Stark there if she hurried. Fern agreed and set off towards the square, where she found a gathering crowd, at the center of which was Stark, who had heroically stopped a rampaging bull. The onlookers, including an elderly woman who reminisced about her husband and a grateful child, praised Stark's bravery. An appreciative townsman even offered to sharpen Stark's axe for free as a token of gratitude. Observing from a distance, Fern was baffled by Stark's quick rise in popularity among the villagers. She decided to wait for a more private moment to give him her present, avoiding the public eye. However, every time Stark parted ways with one group, he immediately found another set of villagers in need of assistance, carrying barrels, rescuing pets, engaging with children, and aiding the elderly. Fern even witnessed a weapons master emerge from the depths of the forest to offer Stark training, impressed by his skills. After Stark finally found a moment of solitude, Fern seized the opportunity to approach him, albeit noticeably worn out from her efforts to keep up. Stark, sensing her exhaustion, expressed concern and curiosity about her unusual silence, prompting Fern to present him with her gift, a pair of leather gloves, noticing his old ones were worn out. Stark was touched by Fern's thoughtfulness and inquired if his appearance seemed unkempt. Fern reassured him that the worn gloves were a testament to his hard work and dedication, despite admitting they did look a bit shabby. Stark reminisced about a conversation with his mentor, Eisen, during which he observed the wear on Eisen's cloak. Stark clarified he wasn't fixated on its dirtiness, but rather viewed it as a testament to Eisen's dedication to training and combat. Eisen responded by recalling a time when Himmel had given him a new cloak during their quest to defeat the Demon King, echoing Stark's sentiment. Eisen shared his belief that even the most cherished tools inevitably wear out, but the spirit of perseverance remains, signified by new challenges and achievements. In the present, Stark resolved to intensify his training, a declaration met by Fern's assurance that his efforts were already commendable. Upon their return to the inn, Frieren greeted them, noting their tardiness. Stark, in a humble gesture, apologized for the delay. Fern, somewhat amused, remarked on the absurdity of the scene. Nonetheless, Stark expressed his anticipation for the hamburger steaks, to which Frieren mentioned that seconds were available, highlighting a moment of celebration within the group. 31 years following the hero Himmel's death, Frieren and her companions navigate a mountainous trail to enter a village within the Aufgabe Federation. An elderly man named Radel is seen perusing his mailbox in the crisp morning air. His wife teases him for his early rise despite the perennially pleasant weather. Amidst the rugged terrain, Frieren's group progresses, with Fern voicing her exhaustion and questioning the necessity of their marshy route. Frieren explains the absence of alternatives, as this path is the sole access to the Imperial capital, urging Fern to minimize her grievances. Stark offers a light-hearted proposition of assistance, which leads to both Fern and Frieren humorously attempting to ride on Stark's back, quickly rebuffed by Stark's jest. Upon their arrival at the village, they encounter a local who nostalgically recalls a time before the construction of a direct route to the imperial capital some 30 years ago, which had since diminished the flow of adventurers through the village. This revelation places Frieren's outdated knowledge into humorous relief, prompting a playful scold from Fern towards Stark for calling Frieren such a granny. The narrative then shifts to Radel and his wife engaging with villagers, showcasing Radel's generous nature by sharing medicinal herbs with a grateful family. The exchange humorously highlights Radel's unsuccessful use of a hair growth potion, much to his wife's playful chagrin. Radel's community spirit is further demonstrated as he commits to teaching a young villager how to fish, illustrating his valued role within the community. Radel, introduced to Frieren's party as the mayor, graciously offers them accommodation, marking their first encounter with adventurers in many years. As Radel attends to the children's request for fishing lessons, he reminds them of the importance of adult supervision near the river. Radel warmly greeted Frieren, introducing himself as the village chief, and extended an invitation for her party to stay in their modest village for as long as they wished. Frieren perceived something amiss but chose to remain silent. Radel generously offered them a vacant house for their stay due to the absence of an inn, an offer which Frieren gratefully accepted. Nearby children, intrigued by the presence of adventurers, eagerly approached Stark and Fern, expressing their excitement and curiosity about Stark's unique abilities. Radel suggested that sharing tales of their adventures would greatly entertain the villagers, given their routine life of fieldwork. Upon Frieren's inquiry, Radel mentioned his retirement from fieldwork, prompting Stark and Frieren to agree to share their stories, pleased by the hospitable arrangements. As Frieren's party engaged with the villagers, narrating their adventurous exploits, Frieren observed Radel busying himself with minor tasks around the village. Later, seated with his wife, Radel expressed regret for missing the adventurers' stories, attributing his absence to the villagers' reliance on him for various chores. His wife remarked on the villagers' admiration for him, leading to a nostalgic conversation about their early days in the village. Radel fondly reminisced about a memorable sandwich his wife made him, a moment of kindness that stood out. His uncharacteristically tender remark prompted his wife's playful inquiry about his well-being, to which Radel assured her he had one last task to attend to that evening. Throughout the night, the party took turns keeping watch, with Stark assigned to awaken Frieren for her shift, humorously suggesting a forceful approach if necessary. Inside, Fern questioned the necessity of such vigilant watchkeeping, considering their proximity to the village. Frieren revealed her conversations with the villagers about Radel, describing him as ordinary yet uniquely calm and amiable. Her suspicion arose from the observation that Radel's hands bore the marks of an actively serving warrior, leading her to ponder the reasons behind his concealment. Radel ventured into the forest to recover a suitcase concealing a weapon, reflecting on a highly classified mission assigned to him in his youth, a mission known to only a select few within the imperial capital. He and his compatriots, designated as Shadow Warriors, swore their allegiance to the Empire, tasked with surveilling individuals traversing the mountain path and eliminating those specified on a confidential list before they could reach the imperial capital. The commander highlighted the mountain path's significance as the sole access route to the capital from the south. Despite observations from a female warrior about the list's inclusion of Empire contributors, the leader emphasized the irrelevance of their reasons for inclusion. Another warrior questioned the mission's duration, given their directive to remain undercover in a village indefinitely, with orders to persist until the completion of the list. Frieren's name, the last on the list, signaled to Radel that his days of peaceful retirement were over. Confronting Stark outside the cabin where the party resided, Radel inquired about his late-night vigilance. Stark's alertness suggested to Radel that his combat instincts might have waned. Recognizing Radel's veteran status, Stark queried his late visit's purpose. Radel's focused intent on Frieren prompted Stark's protective stance, despite Radel's insinuation that most warriors would prioritize self-preservation. However, Stark firmly declared his unwillingness to abandon his companions. Acknowledging Stark's bravery, Radel challenged him to arm himself, underestimating his capability due to the distance between them. But Radel swiftly closed the gap, disarming Stark with a weapon to his throat, demonstrating his superior skill. Stark was about to call Frieren, but Radel rendered Stark unconscious with a single strike. reiterating that Stark's name was not on his list. Frieren awoke to find Frieren standing guard. Radel forcefully entered by breaking down the door and immediately fixed his gaze on Frieren, initiating their confrontation. In a swift move, Radel subdued Frieren, pinning her to the ground with his weapon at her throat. Frieren, from behind, pleaded with him not to harm Frieren, but Radel confidently claimed he could slit Frieren's throat in an instant due to their proximity. Frieren, unable to detect Radel's mana, inquired about his identity. Radel revealed himself as a mere shadow among many, stating he never possessed a name. This revelation surprised Frieren, who had only heard rumors of a secretive order of warriors skilled in hiding their mana, established during the era of the unified empire to counteract mages. Frieren acknowledged that Radel was the first shadow warrior she had encountered. Frieren demanded Radel to back away from Frieren, but he indicated his willingness to kill Frieren and himself if necessary. However, Frieren detected Radel's underlying fear of death. At that moment, Stark made an unexpected entrance through the window, forcing Radel to defend himself. Stark managed to shatter Radel's weapon, but as Radel armed himself with another, Frieren intervened. Radel conceded that he had underestimated their abilities, nostalgically reflecting on his past camaraderie. Frieren questioned Radel's motives for targeting her, to which he responded with regret, wishing he knew the reasons himself. In a flashback, Radel and his comrades posed as a family to blend into a village strategically located near the main mountain pass, an area often chosen by people seeking new livelihoods. The discomfort of their disguises was a minor grievance compared to their mission. The leader, referred to as 11 and now Father, within their cover, instructed the team to maintain their cover, unleashing their combat skills only when necessary. Praising their esteemed capabilities as warriors who do not fear death, he expressed high expectations for their success in the mission. Upon their arrival in the village, the group began to unpack and settle into their new home. During their meal together, one of the warriors expressed how odd it felt to dine as if they were a real family, noting that since being taken from the orphanage, his life had been focused solely on learning to fight. A sentiment he suspected was shared by all of them. The man posing as their father instructed them to eat quietly, emphasizing that any conversation should be trivial to avoid drawing attention. The youngest, Radel, impressed by the man's commitment to their cover, suggested they discuss the fish he claimed to have caught that day, which was met with skepticism by their faux father, who dismissed the story as an exaggeration. As the Shadow Warriors maintained their guise as a typical family, they occasionally executed their assignments from the list, eliminating targets one by one. These moments of action were infrequent, allowing them to lead a predominantly peaceful life in the village. A conversation arose when one of the warriors sought his faux father's blessing for a personal matter, which he readily gave. Curious, Radel learned that his comrade intended to marry the girl from the general store across the street, a move their leader supported as it would further integrate them into the community and reinforce their cover. Shortly thereafter, Radel's brother tied the knot. During that time, Radel encountered his future wife. Observing Radel's interactions, his brother speculated that the woman seemed interested in him, a notion Radel swiftly dismissed. Reflecting on the swift passage of time, his brother noted how his own young son inherited his distinctive frizzy hair, an attribute he had hoped wouldn't be passed down. Radel questioned his brother about his plans for the future, wondering if he intended to remain in the village indefinitely. His brother expressed surprise at the duration of their stay, acknowledging that 10 years had passed yet many names still remained on their list. Nonetheless, he conveyed contentment with their life in the village, pointing out they had nowhere else to return to. As years turned into decades, Radel's family grew. He too found a partner and got married. The Shadow Warriors continued with their uneventful life in the village. During a conversation with his father, who remarked negatively on Radel's beard, Radel mentioned his wife's approval of the look. His father brought up the impending construction of a new main road that would render their mountain pass obsolete, suggesting the conclusion of their mission might be imminent. However, Radel skeptically mused they might have been altogether forgotten, given the absence of communication for over 30 years. His father half-jokingly chided Radel for softening over the years, suggesting it might be time for Radel to relinquish his warrior's resolve. Despite claiming to remain as committed as ever, Radel observed a rare moment of levity in his father, a departure from his typically stoic demeanor. Surprised by his own laughter, his father conceded that their prolonged charade of familial normalcy might not have been entirely unpleasant. In the current moment, Radel disclosed his identity as a shadow warrior, unclear about the origins or the purposes of their creation, or whom they truly served. With all his comrades deceased, he was left without understanding the reason behind their demise, holding on to nothing but the mission. 3 years prior, he experienced the loss of his last remaining friend, his brother, who died peacefully, expressing happiness to see him with his last breath, a sentiment typically exchanged between true siblings. Ironically or coincidentally, Frieren's name appeared last on his list. Frieren declared the conflict between them pointless, arguing that the original intent behind Radel's mission had been forgotten by all. Radel pondered over the significance of his existence, a query to which Frieren responded was his alone to unravel. As Frieren's group left the village, Radel remained behind, humorously reflecting on his reputation as a fearless warrior, yet finding solace in the fact that he could return home. The following day saw Radel in his routine of greeting the morning and checking his mailbox, a task his wife sensed he would forego that day. Surprised by her intuition, Radel simply acknowledged her curiosity. Together, they appreciated the consistently pleasant weather. Meanwhile, Fern and Stark grumbled about their trek. Fern mentioned the fine weather, while Stark critiqued the impracticality of their path. Contrarily, Frieren observed a deterioration in the road conditions compared to her last visit, not anticipating the extent of their decline. Like and subscribe for more.